Hello, this is Bridget Rao with Divine Essentials. Alright guys, we're moving on with the CPTSD book, and I also just wanted to say the only reason I have not done the next part of Alcyone Light Healing is because I have not been feeling my best physically, so standing up and recording has not been something I've been doing a whole lot of. But mental and emotional symptoms. The primary emotional and cognitive symptoms of PTSD are a combination of avoidance symptoms, intrusive symptoms, and depressive symptoms. It is best to think of the emotions as a combination of three forces: the environmental, the body awareness or felt sense, and the mind. When you rely too heavily upon your trauma-related feelings, it is common to react as if you're being hurt in your present moment, when in fact you actually are loved and safe. As a result, you might jump too quickly to conclusions without pause for reflection. These inaccurate interpretations of events tend to lead to painful loss that could have otherwise been avoided. John struggled with strong feelings that influenced her interpretation of current events. For example, after work, her husband liked to watch TV as a way to decompress from a long day. Jan, John, began to feel unimportant. "You don't really love me," she insisted angrily. When her husband turned off the TV and tried to connect, she pushed him away, saying, "If you really cared about me, I wouldn't have to beg you for your attention." And shrugging his shoulders, her husband felt unable to help Jan feel his love for her. In some situations, you might feel emotionally overwhelmed. When you are flooded, you will have a hard time effectively thinking your way through any situation. In fact, the emotion centers of the brain will activate, reducing brain activity in the parts that are responsible for rational thoughts and for making decisions. Behaviors then become impulsive rather than reflective, and overreactive responses sit at one end of the emotion continuum. And when you have a childhood history of abuse or neglect, it is also common to deny, disassociate, shut down from pain. Lack of attention to your emotional world will leave you feeling disoriented. If you are intolerant of emotions, you will likely feel cut off, like something is missing, or as if you are just going through the motion. The butterflies in your stomach or the lump in your throat, the beating of your heart, and the warmth in your face give you a feedback about yourself and your world. So Kevin has the avoidance symptoms. Kevin has smoked pot for many years. Now his wife wants to have a child and has asked him to stop. Reluctantly, he came to therapy after his wife threatened that if he didn't stop, she was going to leave him. Exploring Kevin's childhood history, I learned of his father's anger and rage. Kevin shrugged his shoulders, stating casually, "Yeah, he pushed me around, but it's not a big deal." Within the safety of therapy, we began to acknowledge that indeed his father's behaviors had a significant impact on his emotional life, and he began to address his own anger about his childhood. In order to get away from memories of childhood trauma, it is common to develop avoidance strategies. Sometimes this involves avoiding situations, people, and places that serve as reminders of our past, but avoidance is also maintained by defenses such as denying the past, repressing feelings, idolizing parents, minimizing pain, disassociating. It is common to use substances or maintain other addictive behaviors such as emotional eating or excessive exercising to avoid feeling pain. Intrusive symptoms. "Get away from me," screamed Helen in the middle of the night. Another nightmare woke her up from a deep sleep. She had been haunted by these dreams for as long as she could remember. Helen came to my office because she had not been able to concentrate on her college classes. For the first time, she began to talk about her father and how uncomfortable she was when he would come into her room at night. She needed somebody to help her sort out what happened. Understanding disassociation. Disassociation, like all other symptoms of CPTSD, is a learned behavior that initially helped you to cope with a threatening environment. A neglected or abused child will rely upon built-in biological protection mechanisms for survival to tune out threatening experiences. In adulthood, disassociation becomes a well-maintained division between the part of you involved in keeping up with daily tasks of living and the part of you that is holding emotions of fear, shame, or anger. You might feel that it is just too much to think about what happened. Emotions or body sensations come to the surface of your awareness. It is common to instinctively push the scary, yucky, painful, or confusing feelings far away by resorting to learned dissociative patterns. Symptoms of disassociation exist on a continuum, and they can be relatively mild, such as feeling foggy or fuzzy, having a hard time talking about experiences, or feeling tired. You might feel distracted, or you may have difficulty concentrating. You might feel numb or cut off, and more intense symptoms include feeling out of control, having lapses in memory, or experiencing lost time. You can heal disassociation by developing the capacity to recognize that traumatic events happened to you and that they are over now. You develop the capacity to realize that traumatic events influence your sense of self and your basic assumptions about the world. Healing disassociation involves differentiating between the past and the present, and you can do so by cultivating mindful awareness to the here and now. And that says see page 141 for that part of it. Right here. It says in practice, typically alright, so find a safe place to sit in a chair and allow yourself to collapse. Your shoulders might go forward and your gaze downward. Rather than fight against the collapse, allow yourself to mindfully exaggerate the collapse a little bit at a time until you are slumped forward over your legs. Take your time and notice how you feel in your body. What emotions or thoughts arise? Then, just as slowly, lengthen your spine back up. Slowly lift your torso and your head until you are sitting tall with your head balanced at the top of your spine. Lift your gaze and look straight ahead of you. Feel the sensations in your chest. Do you notice any openness or expansion? What are the emotions, thoughts that arise now? If you feel the impulse to collapse again, then repeat these steps several more times until you feel that staying upright does not require so much effort. Okay? And then take a few moments to write about your experience with this body-centered practice. So I feel like this will help people get back into that moment, you know. Typically, depression as it relates to CPTSD is connected to a lingering feeling of collapse in the body in response to feeling immobilized, helpless, or ashamed. The following somatic experience practice allows you to mindfully reclaim a sense of resiliency and strength in your body. So if you've been feeling, overwhelmed or disassociated or whatever, if you just want to try that out, sit in a chair or sit on the side of your bed or wherever you can, collapse, and then just take note of how you feel there. Pull yourself back up to straight. Notice how you feel then, and if you feel like you need to collapse again until you don't need to collapse anymore. But we're going to end at that time because I feel like, we did a lot so far, and tomorrow we'll carry on with the rest of this. And there's another practice that comes in for tomorrow. We'll talk about that. So thank you guys very much. My knees are starting to feel better, but again, they're not, I have not stood up. I've been in bed for 4 days, just laying down. Because that's the only time that they feel okay. They're getting better, but I haven't wanted to push them or stand up for too much time. So, in Mune, namaste. Thank you.